Welcome to the Hypnosis NGH Podcast. This podcast series offers a fun and serious look at hypnosis and offers various ideas, discuss case studies, along with NGH educational opportunities. Please note, it's important to work within your scope of practice. You can find more information about this on the NGH website at www.ngh.net under the Safe and Ethical Practice menu. The opinions or views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the NGH. Welcome to the Hypnosis NGH Podcast. I'm Eric Damon. Please welcome consulting hypnotist and international presenter, Conny Wladkowski. Conny, you're talking to us from Australia. Now, where in Australia are you?
I'm in Melbourne at the moment.
Melbourne, and I know I've heard of it. Not sure where it is in the big country of Australia.
It's very close to Tasmania.
Oh, okay.
So it's in the southern part. Which is, because we're the opposite of the world, it's colder in the southern part here.
Cold, so cold like winter cold or just cooler than usual?
No, it's actually really cold. So Melbourne has really all four seasons because everyone thinks Australia is always warm and sunny. That's like Queensland and Brisbane, which is tropical. And we really have all four seasons. And right now it should actually be the start of summer, but it's been quite cold, to be honest.
It's just getting revved up, so when it's summer for you, it's going to be really hot.
I hope so. I love it hot.
So now, are you originally from Australia?
No, I'm actually originally from Austria, from Graz in Austria. But I moved to Australia in 2010.
Nice. Do you visit back home in Austria or every once in a while?
Yeah, I go once a year actually, because I've got two little kids, and I raise them bilingual, and I usually go there once a year, and my older daughter goes to school there for a month just to keep her German going, and all my family is there. And that's why I usually come to the NGH. I usually travel to the NGH from Europe, which is a lot easier than from Australia. Flight time and distance and yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a long trip from Australia to get to the US.
Yes, so it suits perfect because that's summer in Europe. I'm there, and that's why I can travel, and my mom can help Anthony with the kids while I'm gone as well. So, and there's a lot of family support that I can help while I'm at the conferences.
See, that's perfect. Now, let's talk about hypnosis here. Obviously, when did you get into? When did you become a hypnotist?
Well, I started full-time in about 2019. So I went pretty much from nothing to full-time straight away. Because at that time, we were in a pretty intense lockdown here in Melbourne. It was just the start of COVID and I couldn't work. So I was like, yes, that's the real time to jump into it. Well, so I did a lot of trainings, but I was kind of a bit too scared to see clients, or I didn't have the confidence to really see clients or make that my full-time career until COVID hit. I was kind of forced into then doing it because in Melbourne, we were in a lockdown for, I think, about 14 months, very extreme. Most of us couldn't go to work. And there was a great opportunity to just do it. My daughter was at school, my husband was at work, and I was like, okay, well, this is the time now to really, really do it. So I did a lot of trainings at that time as well with America, and most of those trainings were obviously nighttime trainings, which was great at that time. And then I decided to jump in full-time and use that opportunity and not to have any more excuses, I guess. And that's when I decided to specialize in anxiety and in trauma relief, because they're both things that I've experienced myself. And they were both things hypnotherapy actually helped me with, which is the reason why I became a hypnotherapist, because I originally have a law degree. So I totally changed my career through hypnosis. Hypnosis helped me when I was really, really in a very, very bad state. And yeah.
Well, that's great to hear, in the sense that it helped you, and obviously, that gave you the spark to be able to want to help other people and do it yourself.
Mm.
So you talked about anxiety and trauma. When you talk about, because we have hypnotists that listen to our podcast, and we also have the general public who listen, who may be interested in hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about trauma, you're not talking about physical trauma in the sense of like a broken arm or something. You're talking about internal trauma, basically, emotional trauma.
Yeah. 100%. Emotional trauma, whether it's childhood trauma or trauma in teenage years or adulthood, any kind of trauma really is what I specialize in.
And do you find it, but you still do other hypnosis, like weight loss or etc., from your practice?
Yeah, I do. I work with any, I can work with any kind of problem. And weight loss, I do a lot with intermittent fasting and weight loss. So I have a lot of clients for that. So yeah, I work with other problems or issues as well. But my real passion is the anxiety and the trauma relief, because they're both things that I've really, really experienced, and they're both things that have affected me for many, many years in my life. And they were both things that hypnotherapy helped me overcome, because I've been through the traditional therapy approach all the way up to medication, until I really hit a point in life where my firstborn was a year old, and the anxiety had overtaken my life to the point where I would wake up every night having a panic attack. I would wake up in the morning then exhausted, not present, not the mother I wanted to be. And then when she was a year old, I'm like, this can't be it. Like this can't be my life, and this can't be how I'm gonna mother my daughter. And I just researched online, and hypnotherapy was one of the things that came up as a possible solution. And at that time, I didn't know anything about hypnosis, but I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And you know what? I think it was almost like how most of my clients say it. It's almost like it was my last resort.
Right.
Right. And
I've heard that before with people that have said that, but it turns out to be the best idea that they've done. Unfortunately, the last one, but
unfortunately, yeah. And this is what I'm kind of trying to work with, just to tell people, hey, hypnotherapy is also, maybe that's a possible solution to what you're going through. Because I feel like, I don't know how it is in the States, but here, GPs, like our doctors, general practitioners, they suggest everything else under the sun but hypnosis. And look, for me, within a couple of sessions, I had no more panic attacks. Within months, I had no more anxiety. And that was the reason why I then changed my career, because it was such a life-changing experience for me, that something that was such a big problem for me, that was affecting me every day, I was suddenly able to overcome. But then what was happening was I was still, the trauma, the unresolved trauma, I guess, was still weighing me down. I still had no confidence. I still had no self-worth, no self-love. I would be even too scared to walk into a room and say hello to people. Like that's how I had this fear of being seen and heard. So overcoming the anxiety was one big part. But the second thing was that I still had all these other issues going on. Hence why I never saw a client. Hence why I did all the trainings and I wanted to do all of that stuff, but I never really went out to see a client. And then I decided, okay, well, I need to overcome the trauma if I really want to do this. But what was happening for me was, I thought, because I've come from the traditional therapy approach, that in order to overcome trauma, you need to relive it and talk about it. And that's kind of what was holding me back from overcoming it, healing from it, however you want to call it. And that's when I decided, all right, what other ways there? And that's when I went into the therapeutic memory reconsolidation, the neuroscience of the brain, how non-regression work could be a possibility for our clients, and first of all for myself.
Right.
And that's what I did. So that was my journey, training with leading experts and really going into what's another alternative way of healing from trauma.
You definitely dove right into this and, helping yourself, but also, gaining all kinds of experience and education in order to help others as well as you progressed through being a hypnotherapist. Yes.
100%. And some people might say, oh, the time that I've been doing it is not as long as other people, but I have been doing it 24/7, literally. Like, I have not just done, okay, here training, and then, I don't know, 5 months later training. I really, really went deep into it with myself, with, training. I trained with a lot of experts. I did a lot of one-on-one training in that time, where I was like, okay, I want to learn from this person because that's what I'm interested in. And I think what I did as well was, when I did training with people, I went more into asking them and dissecting it. Why are we doing it that way? Why do they tell me this is the next step and then this next step? So I really went into not just learning a process, but I guess understanding it.
Right. Well, that's huge. I mean, that's what makes you a better hypnotist. And I think one of the things that I see here is definitely in the fact that you went through this yourself. In needing to see a hypnotherapist and for help, and it worked for you. I mean, I think you're coming from a different place when you go into hypnosis to become a hypnotherapist, especially when you had to deal with it yourself. So,
and that's also a way. That's also a way I create a lot of rapport with my clients, because when I have that initial phone consultation, and they tell me what's going on, and when it comes to trauma or anxiety, I sometimes I say, yeah, I remember when I went through that, and that's how I felt. And you know what their reaction almost always is? Oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. And there's a rapport already that is true, real, and authentic.
No, and you can understand exactly what they're going through. So I think that's huge. I mean, when you talk about trauma support, either it be, and is it just through children or adults as well that you're dealing with that may be dealing with trauma in their life?
I actually work more with adults than children. It's either adults that experience childhood trauma and now they're an adults and they're stuck and they're like, oh, I need to do something about it, because usually it somehow comes back when they haven't resolved it. Or it could be someone that said they just recently experienced a trauma. Because when we look at trauma, whether it's like in childhood or adulthood, I always look at it when you look from the brain science. The brain doesn't label something as trauma or as non-trauma. We label it.
Right.
But the brain has an experience, and then it learns, it learns out of that experience, and it usually predicts the future to be happening the same way. And that's when people reach out, where they have that same reoccurring pattern happening, the same way of feeling how they felt in childhood. And that's why I use really the predictive nature of the brain, where we're going to be like, okay, well, your brain is just predicting something and it's triggered by a certain stimuli, and then your nervous system just reacts exactly the same way.
And your job is to get in there and help them.
100%. And that's why I step in with that approach, the therapeutic memory reconsolidation approach, where we don't have to go back to the initial sensitizing event, where we can work with another time that the client felt or reacted the same way, because it's all linked to the same neural network and it's a nervous system response. So it's about rewiring that response rather than rewiring an old event or trying to change an old event.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And then you also deal with anxiety, like you said. And let me ask you, from dealing with clients, what do you see as your most proud moment? And it doesn't have to be one individual or something. It could be something that you just specialize in as we're talking, that is the you get the most satisfaction from helping people with.
Well, I do actually have I'm proud of every client, that makes progress, and I love what I do, and that's what thrives me. But I think probably the client that I've written my book about, she client Victoria, and I've written my Shine book about her. And it's really about how I've helped her. And I think that was probably one of the biggest transformation that I've experienced with a client, from not leaving the house for like almost 5 years to, after session 2, went grocery shopping again. Something she hadn't done in 5 years. She'd only done online shopping. And she was that classic example of being put in a certain approach because of what has happened. And then someone suggested hypnotherapy to her because she was really at the very, very bottom. And she was like, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do anymore. And it was really beautiful to see that transformation with her in every week. Like, it was just powerful. And for her, I think the key thing was, when she originally reached out and we had the initial conversation, was when I said to her, listen, I'm going to do a different approach that you might have not experienced before. And let me tell you this, you can tell me as much or as little about the traumatizing event. It's not going to change the outcome. And I think that was one of her, like, okay, that sounds a bit different than what I've done before. So yeah, that was definitely one of my proudest moment and the biggest transformation, and hence why I've written the book about that client as well.
That's great. And the book is called again?
Shine Through Trauma.
Also, you're not only a hypnotist who sees clients, but you also are a presenter, meaning that you travel the world, going to different conferences and presenting to other hypnotists throughout the world. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. And it was funny. That was not one of my things that I guess had on my list to do, or that I wanted to achieve. But it was about 3 years ago when I decided to do something about the fear of public speaking that I had, or the story that I made up in my mind that I'm not great at public speaking. Because until then, honestly, I avoided every public speaking opportunity, whether it was in school or in my law degree. Somehow I managed to get out of everything that had to do with presenting or public speaking, because I just had this fear, and I would literally feel sick in the stomach having to talk in front of people. But then what happened is, because I get all my clients to do an action after each session, something that pushes them a little bit out of their comfort zone in relation to the session. And then I was like, well, who am I to tell my clients, push yourself out of your comfort zone? And then I am not doing it. So I decided, apply, speak at a conference. And even if I just do it once and I realize, okay, it's not for me, that's fine. But at least I've done it. So I did that. And then I realized I enjoy doing it, which was so, like, it's still sometimes a weird experience, because in my mind, I just never saw me on stage presenting or saw myself, having everyone look at me and talk. It was just so far from what the stories I was telling myself about myself were. And, that was the biggest outcome for me, that now I travel all over the world and present at conferences.
I find that amazing that you had that fear of public speaking, and you're able to now get up and talk to other hypnotists about, your specialties and outcomes that you've had, and helping them to improve on their practice that they do. I find it amazing. And not to mention, having a law degree, how would you get up in front of a court?
Well, straight when I got my law degree, I moved to Australia, so I could never use it.
Oh,
so I've never had to really, and it was funny. During COVID, I was like, great, I don't have to go out and present. It kind of suited me a little bit. But then when it was over and the conference started again, I was like, I need to do this for my clients. I need to be that living example and how do I say, walk my talk, and do it.
Well, we enjoy the fact that you come to the National Guild of Hypnosis Convention and present for us. I mean, the folks that we have that attend our conference do enjoy seeing you and hearing what you have to say. I mean, you always get some good numbers of folks in your class, so that's a good thing.
Yes, and I enjoy it a lot. I'm so glad that I, decided a couple of years ago to come for the very first time. And yeah, I love the conference. I love how everyone's welcomed me, because before I went there, I only knew a couple of people, but not 1 minute did I ever feel like I wasn't I was alone or that people weren't interested. And even when I came for the first time, I had quite a lot of people in my talks, and I really appreciated that they were giving someone that they didn't know a chance. And I think then I got really good feedback, and now I have a lot of reoccurring people that come to all of my talks, because I do really prepare for my talks, and I really want to give people as much value as possible as I can do in a 50-minute time frame. But the fact that everyone gave me a chance the very first time was great.
Well, I think it's important that you get the chance to go out there and share your knowledge, and I mean that's what attracts other hypnotists to your presentations, and and you have that knowledge and you present well. See, even though you were a little afraid of standing in front of folks, now they love seeing you. So you must be much more relaxed when you do that.
You know what? It was interesting. I just presented at the Australian Hypnosis Conference last weekend, and someone asked me. They were like, "How are you feeling? Are you nervous?" And it was like the first time I'm like, you know what? Yes, a little bit of excitement, but now I've really, when we talk about repetition and reinforcement, I've really done it so many times now that I'm in the fact where I'm really enjoying it, and that's beautiful because I feel like the more enjoyed, the more relaxed I am, the better I can present, and the more I can give. And that's I've had to shift this last summer of from nervous to excitement to really enjoyment as well.
I always get a little of everyone gets butterflies before they talk, even if they love to talk. And I mean, in the past, I used to be on the radio because I loved to chat and play music, and I always got a little nervous, but I still did it because I liked it.
Well, I think it's even when you think about, when people see their first client.
Right.
The first client, people get nervous.
Of course.
And then as time goes on, you're more confident, but you still have, and I think maybe that little bit of nervousness, excitement, whatever you want to call it, is because I care or you care.
Right. Absolutely. I think I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You really want to help somebody, and that's why it's a new client, and absolutely. So let me ask you, in talking to our regular folks who are not a hypnotist, if somebody came up to you and said, I want to go see a hypnotist for whatever, and what would you say to them to help them understand it better? Because I think, as you said earlier, it becomes the last resort in some cases, especially coming from a general practitioner to a hypnotist to help somebody. And I think, again, a lot of it always has been and continues to be to some degree that people just don't understand how hypnosis may be able to help them. So again, my question is, if somebody comes to you and says, okay, I have this going on, whatever it is, weight loss, and how can a hypnotist help me, or what's it all about? What would you say to them to help them at ease and want to go see a hypnotist?
Well, I would say to them, first of all, most of the obstacles, or whatever they're reaching out for, is usually not something that is logical, in our brain. It's a fear, it's a habit, it's something that is stuck. And that's usually stuck in our subconscious mind. And with hypnosis, we can create the change where the problem is. Because when we look at anxiety clients, for example, their fears aren't logical most of the time. And people can tell them 1,000 reasons. And I say that to anxiety clients, people can tell you 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't be anxious. And everyone did that to me. But then I went home and I was anxious anyway. So I think the key thing is to understand that all of those patterns or those things that people want to overcome are programmed or stuck or whatever you want to call in the subconscious mind. And this is exactly where we can use hypnosis. We can clear it up where the problem is stuck. And, even when you look at weight loss clients, a person that wants to lose weight, they know on a logical level they shouldn't be eating that piece of chocolate. And maybe they're strong for 3 or 4 or 5 days. And then the subconscious mind wins, or the programming wins. So I tell my clients, this is where your programming is. And that's why it's so powerful to work exactly with hypnosis, because we can reprogram it. And then that problem isn't there anymore. And it's not a fact of, what's winning, the conscious or the subconscious mind or the willpower. We can really rewire it, because at the end of the day, whatever I work with my clients with, I always want this to be the last thing they need to do in order to overcome this specific problem. And we can do that when we go into the subconscious mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, that's one of the things that I think a lot of, folks that are not a hypnotist and they're thinking about going to a hypnotist, they just don't understand exactly how it can help them. And I think that was a great explanation on how it can be helpful to people. So what we're
100%.
what we're talking about, I want to just go back a little bit and talk about trauma and what type of trauma would you, as a hypnotherapist, be able to help somebody with? And I'm kind of piggybacking this on what you just talked about for again the general public, just so they would understand how hypnosis can help.
Look, really, for any kind of let's talk about emotional trauma when we talk about hypnosis, because that's what I specialize in. For any kind of trauma, for any kind of traumatic experience or bad experience, because a client usually doesn't come and say, heal me from trauma. They usually come because they have depression, they have anxiety, they have whatever it is, lack of confidence, they have weight loss issues. So they already come with a problem that is the result out of the trauma. So really, especially when we look at the therapeutic memory reconsolidation, I work with what is the client stuck with. Because even two people, experiencing the same trauma, most likely or often develop different effects from it. So when you go back to that, it's like, okay, well, what are you being held back by today? And that's exactly what we're going to clear up, whether we know the reason or we don't know the reason. And that's what I find so amazing about hypnotherapy and the process, that we don't need to know the root cause in order to overcome it. Because people often don't know the root cause. Or people think they know what it is. But how do you know it wasn't something that happened way earlier when, I don't know, they were a year old or they were a little baby and, let's say, mommy didn't come and they cried for 10 minutes. Like, we don't know these things. And I think that's really beautiful that I say to my clients, let's not get hung up on the root cause and on why. Let's look at, okay, where are you stuck today? Because that's why you've reached out. And where do you want to get to? How do you want to feel? So that's how I really talk with my clients. Now, if a client wants to talk about the trauma, I'm not going to say you're not allowed to. I'm just giving them an opportunity, to be like, okay, we can talk as much or as little as you want.
Right. So people don't necessarily have to go, in their past, in order to find out what caused the problem, because it may not be the problem that was the start of it. So obviously the way that you are able to help them is just deal with the issue at hand, basically.
100%. And then it ripples back, because if we look at the neural network, let's say the initial sensitizing event and all the subsequent events where the client, felt similar, it's all part of that same network. So when we, use the therapeutic memory reconsolidation, for example, we use one of these events, and if we use the exact steps, it then changes the emotional track of that memory. We're not changing the event, but we're changing the emotional track of that memory. And I did a lot of research on memory, and I find memory really, really interesting, because a lot of people think memory is like a recorded movie of something, that we replay in the brain. But if you look at the neuroscience, memory is actually a recreation process. So when someone recalls a memory, all these different parts of the brain get pulled in together and they create that thing called memory. But when a memory gets recalled, it's malleable. So it can change. And I find that really interesting, because every time, we recall a memory, it changes really subtle. And people don't realize it's changing. So, when I say change is subtle, it could be, me telling you about my childhood, and then you tell me something about your childhood, and then I take a little bit of your information. Or for me, for example, I would not be doing this work if I didn't experience what I experienced. So now when I look back, I look at my experience with my own growth and learning. So I look at it completely different. And then we start putting all these little informations in that now have changed. And suddenly the memory has, reconsolidated back in with a new change. I mean, you hear often I always find it funny when you hear siblings talk about, I don't know, about a childhood, about a holiday or your spouse, and then you're like, nah, it happened that way, and the other person was like, nah, that's how it happened, and everybody's so convinced that their memory is the true one. But everybody's memory has changed a little bit. So when people, let's say, talk about a childhood memory, I like to use that as an example. It's contaminated by all of those times they thought about it, they've maybe spoken about it, now by their own growth and learning, by their own experience. And that's the interesting thing about memory, that we're like, okay, well, what part of that memory, how did it really happen? Did it really happen that way?
Well, that's amazing that you can be so successful at helping folks that are dealing with any type of trauma that way. That's a lot of work on your part, and the fact that you dove in so deeply and understanding exactly what the brain is doing and is all about, because that helps you become or are a better hypnotherapist for it.
100%. And I just trained people the last 2 days in the therapeutic memory reconsolidation and another program. And it was amazing to really teach them, hey, these are the 4 steps. And there's not a script or a thing you need to follow to achieve those 4 steps. And the interesting thing is a lot of us are doing those 4 steps because we've learned, we've all been trained by people that have done something a certain way. But I feel like when you understand why you're doing it that way, when you start doing it with a lot more intention, it's so interesting and so powerful.
Right. That is amazing. Let me ask you, so you wrote a book. Did you only write one, or you have any other?
I've got 2 books where I collaborated with other people. And then last year, actually, I think exactly a year ago, I published my first book that I've written alone.
Wow. And those are available on Amazon or?
Yes, they're available on Amazon. And, I actually wanted to bring them to the NGH, and then they got delivered the day after the NGH was over.
Well, we can put them in the NGH bookstore too.
Yes, beautiful. Okay.
So people can get them online from the NGH. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
So there's one other thing I want to mention, and that's you can have the convention at your fingertips, or you can have the NGH at your fingertips by getting the NGH app. That's right. So if you want to download it, you can download it on Google Play or the Apple App Store. You can download the app, get it on your phone. I don't know if you can see this, if it's close enough, but the NGH app. And the great thing about it is that you can look at all the presentations that are being done at the convention. You can also see which room your presentation is in and what's up next, the whole schedule. And you can download the NGH app, and that will help you at this year's convention. Thank you for listening to the Hypnosis NGH Podcast. You're welcome to share your ideas for future podcasts by emailing us, nghpodcast@ngh.net.